story about the guy, the rabbi who says to the one guy, "Boy, are you ugly." And then, which is one of my favorites. I do like the one about how long it was.
Where?
The citation. Yeah, but John likes it. I think because it's like quiet and nobody bothers. Sure. But he says it for like 3
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Hello.
It's really nice to see you guys. This is one of those Friday nights where a week comes to an end, and I look around our wonderful, cozy little community, and I talk to almost every person in this room this week, which is really awesome. Because I love you guys, and it's really nice to be able to come together and to just hug each other and to know that this week was so different for each of us in whatever things we were dealing with. But when we come here, we come to share it and also just to share ourselves. So I invite you to just turn to the people around you, give them a little COVID elbow or whatever. And I want to remind you, please to make sure you have a mask. Please make sure that you have a mask that's over your nose and mouth so that we can keep everybody safe in here. And please make sure it stays
Please
on.
lift your masks so that they cover your nose.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So we will begin our service tonight with some words of welcome, starting with by me. I'm Rabbi Jessica Graf, joined by Cantor Toby, Glaser, Rabbi Phelps, and then so many of you. I'd like to invite Mike Feldman, who is going to give some words of welcome on behalf of the Board of Trustees. And I don't know if you're going to say something formal or informal, but we'd love to hear a little bit about, this is a microphone all for you, about what your week has been like. Oh, really? Okay. I don't know. Okay.
Hi there. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome. My name is Mike Feldman on behalf of the Board of Trustees of Shereth Israel. Welcome to Friday night services. It's great to see you all. Enjoy, and Shabbat Shalom.
I understand that we have a special candlelighter who's running from the bima at top speed. I would like to invite Zach Migdale to join us on the bima as we celebrate his birthday. How old did you just turn? 26. A baby. Mazal Tov. Did you get to do something fun for your birthday?
I did. I had dinner with my Oh, this is on now. Okay, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I had dinner with my grandparents and my mother, and it was delightful.
What'd you eat?
Mussels. Definitely something not kosher, so my apologies. The French fries were kosher, probably.
Maybe. Who knows? Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed. The blessing for the lighting of our Shabbat candles is on page 2 in our Sidurim. We'll bring the light of Shabbat into a time that feels pretty cold and dark outside.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'chad l'gner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Okay, that's not gonna light a lot of fire.
We'll continue on page 20 with Lecha Dodi as we welcome the angels to join us here, and we let this week, which has come to a chilly end, go stay outside as we come together in our beautiful sanctuary.
Sorry, give me the
We remain standing and turn to page 28 for Baruch Hu.
Just aim our J.
We turn to page 32. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael.
Ahavat olam beYisrael, amcha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta.
Please be seated. We continue with Ve'ahavta on page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות עבדיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך. וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
We turn to the top of page 39 and read together. I love these words as we sit in our sanctuary and think about what it takes still for us to come together and to support one another during these challenging times. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. On page 43, let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai haporei sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people, Israel, and over your city of peace, Yerushalayim. Hashkivenu is on the bottom of page 43.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom, ve'ha'amidenu shomrenu l'chayim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Shelter us beneath your wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us daily
On Shabbat, all of the usual petitionary prayers when we ask God for things all during the week are put on hold, with the exception of two things that feel important enough to ask God for, that our rabbis, our sages of old taught us it was okay to ask for, even on Shabbat, even as we want God to rest and be renewed as well. Those are healing, refuah, and peace, shalom. And so on Shabbat, when we come together, we say these words, blessing for healing for those in our hearts, in our community, in our lives, who are in need of wholeness and healing. We turn to page 253. In our community on this Shabbat, we pray for the healing of Aharon Ben Tzvi, Shoshana Chana Asher, Sharon Carmen, Jeremy Frick, Michael Gaines, Mikiko Wong, William Kurian, Monica Levin, Carolyn Resnikoff, Agnes Rothblatt, Annette Wiener, and all those whom you mention out loud and in your heart, at home, and here in our sanctuary tonight.
For the Amidah, beginning with Adonai Sefatai on page 46.
This is a beautiful melody by Beit Tfilah Yisraeli. Picture yourself on the boardwalk in Tel Aviv. This is for thousands of Israelis come to these prayer services on Friday nights in Tel Aviv. And I've done this melody with the choir. We're going to start with Alai Lai Lai. Da 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 da, ya 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 da da da. Ya da 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 da, Adonai, Adonai, Sefatai Tifta, V'yagid Tehilatecha, Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לישני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
We take a few moments now for silent prayer. When you have finished your prayers, you may be seated.
תפילתך, אדוני צורי, צורי וגואלי, עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל. יאי די 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 די, 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 יאי די 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 די, יאי די
Shabbat Shalom again. So in our Torah cycle this week, we read from Parshat Vayigash. And in this Torah portion, Joseph finds meaning in his circumstances. Kind of amazingly, he is really changed by what's happened to him, and he is able to see something powerful and even positive in his trials and tribulations that have led him to the place where he's able to be encountered by his brothers who come to him asking for food in a time of famine. Someone forwarded me an article from The Atlantic this week, and I read this article thinking, wow, this links so beautifully to what we learn about Joseph in our Torah portion. The article is entitled "The Opposite of Toxic Positivity." And the article describes how it's not helpful to assign some kind of a superficial positive to everything which is otherwise difficult, challenging, hurtful. There's no reason to put a phony positive spin on everything, but rather the author suggests that something called tragic optimism might be a better approach. The author quotes a very interesting approach to this, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But first, let me just say that he talks about tragic optimism as a phrase coined by the existential humanist psychologist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl. Many of you may have read some of his writing after coming out of the Holocaust. And Frankl talks about tragic optimism involving the search for meaning and amidst the inevitable tragedies of human existence. Not whitewashing the tragedies into being positive experiences, but rather finding some kind of meaning. The author says it's not the traumatic event itself that leads to growth, but rather how the event is processed. Those of you who read Man's Search for Meaning may remember that Frankl tries to make meaning out of this tragic time in history. The author explains in this article in The Atlantic that toxic positivity is ultimately a denial of reality, and he recommends against that. He says, I believe that an overlooked route to gratitude is exposure to difficult circumstances. All of us have experienced difficult circumstances, not only in the last 19 months, but over the course of our lives. As I was reading this article, I was reflecting back on a medical problem that I had for about 2 decades as I was growing up for my teenage years and beyond. I had a spasming esophagus that caused extreme pain and a lot of time in doctor's offices and hospitals. It's something that I often, for years, tried to forget because the pain caused me to be unable to ever experience life without that sort of gnawing discomfort and sometimes really debilitating pain. But I tried, and I don't always succeed, but I try to remember even now as often as possible what it feels like, be aware of what it is to walk through the world, to not have that pain. We usually only recognize things in our own bodies that don't work. Judaism teaches us even to say prayers for the things that work in our bodies, the arteries, the openings, closings, the heart, the eyes, blinking, all the things that work that we take for granted. And so I was thinking about that as I was reading this article and reading these words that the author wrote about the distinction between gratitude, which is a momentary emotion, he writes, and gratefulness, which is ultimately an overall orientation, a way of being in the world. The article concludes with this line: existential gratitude is not just a switch to turn on when things go well. It is also a light that shines in the darkness. I was thinking about all of this as I tried to process how we can teach ourselves to experience more gratefulness and to be aware of more gratefulness, even when sometimes it's only a moment of gratitude that we can feel, or the challenge which surrounds us that we feel more than anything. Gratefulness, it seems from the article, leads to an awareness of the potential positive. Once there's a recognition of potential positive in a situation, it removes the need to control the situation, which is often out of our control. The removal of that need to control something which we can't control leads to the possible recognition of good in any situation, which ultimately takes us back to gratefulness, to a life in which we aspire or even achieve sometimes, maybe in small ways or small moments, maybe if we practice it very well, to be our worldview, allows us to live with gratefulness. I thought about this article in relation to Joseph's situation or predicament or elevation to an esteemed status by the time we got to this very Torah portion. He makes 2 quite extraordinary and remarkable statements. In this week's Torah portion, in 45:5, if you want to check me at home, or talk about it tomorrow morning perhaps, Joseph says, "Do not be sad." He's talking to his brothers, who of course threw him in the pit and tried to get rid of him once and for all. "Do not be sad, and let it not trouble you that you sold me here, for it was to preserve life." It was only through the circumstances that followed Joseph being thrown in the pit by his brothers and thrown out of the family, out of the environment, that Joseph was able to reach his position where he could actually save his brothers, so many of his relatives, Israelite families, and so many across Egypt during a time of famine. In next week's Torah portion, Joseph follows that up in Genesis 50 and Vayechi with these amazing words: "You intended evil against me, but God designed it for good." It's rather an extraordinary statement coming from someone who was so mistreated and abused, someone who was able to come so far to recognize that perhaps in this time of tragedy that he experienced, there's some kind of tragic optimism, of a gratefulness that might be arrived at by experiencing the true challenge of his own situation. So I concluded this week, which has just come to an end, with the following thought about our own situation. The Joseph story and the Atlantic article made me wonder how this notion of tragic optimism, of finding gratefulness, and finding the possibility of letting go of the need to control something which we can't control might allow us even to find some kind of gratefulness or to find some kind of meaning, which allows us ultimately to have gratitude. Can tragic optimism help us cope with a pandemic or other challenges we can't control? Perhaps one of the beautiful learnings of this time, which is so out of our control, is a new way to encounter the challenges that we, like our ancestor Joseph, have found foisted upon us. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Rabbi Graf. Well, with those inspiring words in mind, with that reminder to experience gratitude or an overall attitude of gratefulness toward the world, we're going to take a moment to celebrate simchas, joyous occasions that are happening in the lives of members of our community. I know of at least one. I'm going to save it for a second. If anyone else has a simcha that they wish to announce, that they can announce loudly and in very few words from their location in the sanctuary, please feel free to let me know if there's one we should be celebrating. Anybody? Oh, okay, go ahead. What? Wait, what was that? All right, finals is coming up, and then finals will be over, so that's pretty exciting for our teens and the... Yes. That's exciting for the teens. Yes, please. Yep, winter break is after finals. Good stuff. Why don't you go ahead, Tali, and then Eric. Oh, well, happy birthday to Gabby Maxman, whose birthday was on Tuesday. Thank you, Tali. How about you, Eric?
Well, first of all, I want to validate it's not just the teens that are really excited.
Fair.
I just got word from my brother who lives in Seattle. He's got a job offer for a company based in San Francisco, so he'll be down here more often.
Ooh, all right. Eric's brother is looking to be present in San Francisco more often. He has a job offer here. Wonderful. Yes, and Nancy, please go ahead. Oh my goodness, that's very exciting. Nancy's adopting a puppy tomorrow, apparently. Ooh. Will you bring the puppy to come see us, please? Well, and in addition to all of those wonderful simchas, as many of you know, our very own Natalie Wiseman, our youth programs manager, recently became engaged to Heath Cannell. So there we go, you can see the ring. So please congratulate her. If you haven't already had a chance to congratulate her at some point. Poor Heath works a very strange and challenging schedule, so he can't be with us this evening. But at some point, he will be here and we'll bring them both up for a blessing. But for now, we're all just going to join together in Shehechianu for that joyous occasion and for all the other ones that have been mentioned. So please go ahead and rise and join us on page 344 if you need it for Shehechianu.
Baruch atah Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu la'zman hazeh. Amen.
We're going to continue now with Aleinu, which you can find in your prayer books on page 282.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצון, ולא משתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
You may be seated. Our thoughts now turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and every nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. On this Shabbat, we remember for Shiva for the first 7 days of mourning, Jay Kovton, brother of Merle Kovton, who was laid to rest yesterday. If you are in a period of Shiva or Shloshim, the first 7 or 30 days of mourning, please rise and share the name of your loved one with us. If you're in the first year of mourning for a loved one, please rise and share their name with us. In addition to those who were just named, the perpetual memorials in our community are Harold Weiss and Joanne May Weiss. We also remember the following yahrzeits, anniversaries of death, on this Shabbat. Please rise as your loved one's name is read. We remember Bernice Axe, Patricia Allen, Sarah Alpert, Alan Axelrod, Sandra Barron, Rabbi Edward Ben Eliezer, Gail Brewer, John Kane, Maddie Denola, Mary Doherty, Kaya Feinberg, Ted Fenn, Jenny Goss, Harry Greenfeld, Charlotte Grossman, Floyd Gruskin, Alusha Chachamovich, Sonia Chachamovich, Maureen Lerner, Harold Lipset, Sidney Loeb, Charles Mednick, Marty Misrak, Susie Morgenstein, Lucille S. Rest, Sadie Rice, Michael Rosenberg, Dr. David Sachs, Janice Schulman, Daniel Irwin Schwartzberg, Jerome Sherman, Al Sider, Helen Sider, Blanche Silverman, Charlotte Stern, Dorothy Wolfe, and Leo T. Zuckerman. If you're observing a yahrzeit for someone whose name I have not read, please rise and share their name with us at this time. And we now rise together as one community and turn to page 294 for the Mourner's Kaddish. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shmei rabbah, ba'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam u'almei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shmei dekudsha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru amen. May the one who creates peace on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to all the world. Together we say, amen. Please be seated. We have just a few announcements to make this evening. We want to make sure everybody is aware and remembers that while we will have a relatively normal service next Friday, a week from today, 2 weeks from today on December 24th, and then again on December 31st, because those are days of some significance when people may have some things to do, we're going to go ahead and have services on Zoom only. So on December 24th and 31st, please join us on Zoom for our Friday night services. We're also going to suspend Torah study for the following Saturdays. So that's December 25th and January 1st. No Torah study on those days. So go celebrate whatever you might be celebrating. Also, a week from this Friday, next Friday, there will be a YAP event, a young adult event, after services for 20s and 30s. At about 7:15, everyone's going to head over to Santino's for pizza. So if you are in that age demographic and available, please join us next week. Torah study will be as usual tomorrow on Zoom, 9:15, with me. And our last day of studio for 2021 is this Sunday. So please come on to the synagogue. We may not get a lot of time in Lafayette Park this weekend as it's supposed to rain, but we shall see. Anything else we should announce? All right. I think that pretty much covers it. So with that, we're going to go ahead and begin to conclude our service, starting with Kiddush, which you can find on page 5. I'm going to go grab the Kiddush cup. And let's rise together. And if you want to follow along again, we are on page 5 in our prayer books. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho ve'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila lemikraye kodesh zecher litziat mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta v'yotanu kidashta kol hamim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon inchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat amen. L'chaim. There we go, the COVID-safe sip. And now, to reveal our challah, a COVID-safe challah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'te'avon. Well, please do. We're going to conclude our service this evening with Odyavo, one of the many songs and prayers in which we ask for peace. As Rabbi Graf pointed out earlier, there are really only two things we ask for on Shabbat. We ask for healing and we ask for peace, because it is never the wrong time to ask for peace. So we'll conclude our service with this prayer for peace, which you can find on page 353. Shalom aleinu, Odyavo shalom aleinu, Odyavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Odyavo shalom aleinu, Odyavo shalom aleinu, Odyavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam aleinu ve'al
Shabbat shalom.